And up for the next session, that is Future of L&D in the AI World. For this, I would like to invite Mr. Amit L Barua, Director XED. Amit is a seasoned leader with 24 years of experience in learning and development and executive education. A certified instructional designer and learning ROI professional, he has led impactful learning initiatives across global market including US, Europe and Asia. Currently at XED, Amit designs and delivers long-durational program for multinational corporations, blending global best practices with contextualized solutions. Earlier, as program director at an Indian School of Business (ISB), he steered executive education strategy, program design, and profitability. He has also led leadership roles at Star Union Daiichi Life Insurance, SBI General Insurance, HDFC Group, and Tata Group. Amit holds advanced management credentials from Cornell, Michigan Ross, NUS Business School, and ISB Hyderabad. Huge round of applause for you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mitali. Very good morning to all. Wonderful interacting with all of you all this morning. The topic of my talk is from knowledge to action, empowering senior leaders through strategic learning interventions. Now, why do I say from knowledge to action? Because increasingly across work that we do for medium and large organizations globally, we hear this time and again and every time from the stakeholders, from the sponsors of the program, and that is interventions for senior leaders need to have an outcome that gets met, needs to have a goal that gets achieved. It needs to be a means to an end and not an end in itself. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in my subsequent slides. Let's look at this. Now, most of us are used to categorizing companies into various industry buckets. You'd put a broking company into a broking industry. You'd put a bank into a banking industry, an insurance company into an insurance industry, an FMCG industry, and so on and so forth. But when you speak to a senior banker today at the C-suite level, the thing that he fears most today is not competition coming in from the bank next door. The bank next door to him is known territory. What he fears most today is competition coming in from the unknown, from an industry that he doesn't understand, from something that he didn't expect. It comes like a bolt out of the blue. Today, you have banks globally, who don't own a single branch at all. Not one branch on the ground. And yet, some of those banks rank right up there in terms of their CSAT scores. Now, you'd wonder whether you'd want to categorize them as a bank or you'd want to categorize them as a technology company. Nearer home, if you look at the broking industry. In the broking industry, till the other day, the way they understood expansion and growth is you have more number of branches in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. You have more number of relationship managers, X number of clients attached to every relationship manager, and therefore you open more branches, more relationship managers, more customers per relationship managers. That's how they understood growth till the time a Zerodha came in and it disrupted the entire industry. And customers are moving into an organization like Zerodha, and they are now wondering, what do I do with so many relationship managers? What do I do with so many branches, and so on? So transformation, therefore, is old news. The future is actually industry conversions. It's not transformation within your own organization, but it's actually industry conversion that's happening around us. Now, the power of AI has dramatically changed the way we live and work. In fact, AI is a great skill leveler. Not very long back in our own fraternity, we had a role of that of a content writer. He or she used to write content for a lot of our programs, particularly asynchronous programs. Now, today, that role has become more or less redundant. The gap between a good content writer and a not so good content writer has diminished. Yeah. In fact, not very long back, I was listening to the Dean of the Oxford University at the Oxford campus. And most of his research, his entire research work is in the space of AI. He says that in about 3 years from now, AI should be able to replicate most of human skills, if not all. 3 years, he says. That's scary. Then, therefore, in that kind of a context, what therefore are the skills today that are becoming more and more relevant? And those are the power skills. What are those skills? The skills to be able to empathize, the skills to be able to motivate a team, the skills to be able to lead a team, the skills to be able to show compassion, skills to be able to show forgiveness, so on and so forth. Those are the power skills that are becoming more and more relevant, which something like AI would find it difficult to replicate. George Bershon is a leading voice globally in the area of talent management. He's a thought leader in that space. What he says is that CXOs, C-suite, need to have T-shaped skills. And he says T-shaped skills means the depth of skills and the breadth of skills. Within the depth of skills, he's talking about skills like channel management, pipeline management, and so on. And within the breadth of skills, he's talking about skills like project management, sales recruiting, and so on. With that in context, let us look at our typical learning structure and framework. We start with something called the learning needs assessment. We call it a diagnostic study at our end. We then work on designing and developing a learning solution. We then work towards implementing that learning solution. And then we finally want to track and understand what was the outcome of that learning intervention. I'll talk a little bit more about these in my subsequent slides. Now, when we say diagnostic study, now when you're putting together typically, say a diagnostic study for a senior group, there's only one objective that a diagnostic study should look at achieving, and that is the diagnostic study should help us link the learning intervention to the near, medium, and long-term goals and strategies of the organization. The better the diagnostic study helps us link the learning intervention to the near, medium, and long-term goals and strategies of the organization, the better would be the buy-in for the intervention. For example, if we conduct a diagnostic study, we'd want to understand, as a part of the diagnostic study, what are those near, medium, and long-term goals and strategies that the organization has. What are the capabilities required for the organization to achieve those goals and strategies? What are the competencies and capabilities that the organization has? And therefore, what are those capabilities that the organization needs to build? That's what we try and understand in a typical diagnostic study. Now, in a diagnostic study that we would conduct, we'd first want to, across our work globally, we sign an NDA whenever we are putting together something which is being customized. Once an NDA is in place, we try and understand, we try and collect information through secondary sources. Through secondary sources would mean through strategy documents, medium and near term strategy documents, the KRA documents, the company works, etc. Once that is in place, we try and collect information through primary information. And here is when we would want to conduct deep one-on-one interviews, group discussions, and so on and so forth. We'd want to interview the senior-most leadership of the organization, and from them try and understand what are those near and medium strategies that the organization is trying to chase. We'd want to interact with members of the HR community, the learning team. We'd want to meet and interact with the prospective participants for whom an intervention is being envisaged, and we'd want to interact and meet and interview reportees to those prospective participants to close the loop. And all of this culminates into a diagnostic study report, which then becomes the base document for you to design a learning intervention. Now, the diagnostic study report may throw some outcomes which could be beyond the purview of learning, but it will definitely give you some input, whether there is some operational issues that need to be handled somewhere, there are some technology issues that need to be handled somewhere. But yes, it will also tell you what is it that you would need to do through a learning intervention that can be put together. Now, once a diagnostic study is put in place, the learning intervention per se, in fact, could be as short as something like a 2 or 3 day intervention, or it could be something more structured and a deep down talent management exercise where you could actually be preparing your talent pool to take on the next level. Your department heads may be moving into CXO roles, etc., and so on and so forth. And in a long journey, which could be maybe in a blended format, you could have in-person classrooms built in there. You could have live virtual sessions built in there. You could have asynchronous learning built in there. You could have executive coaching built in there. You could bring in assessments that we could bring in there. You could also have action learning projects, etc., also brought in there. It could be an entire journey which builds in multiple of these elements depending on the need and context of the organization. You could also bring in industry immersions. In our experience globally, across work that we do in India, across US and the Gulf, is that we see industry immersions resonate very, very well with senior leaders, because senior leaders are largely kinesthetic learners. They learn by doing. I'll give you an example here. Not very long back, there was a group that we were working with, and in one of the modules, as a part of the longer exercise of the learning intervention, which was over a 12-month long intervention, we took them to Singapore. And the area that needed to be addressed for them was operational excellence. And as a part of that, among other things in terms of a classroom frameworks, etc., and so on, we took them to Marina Bay Sands. Now you'd ask me, why Marina Bay Sands, and what does Marina Bay Sands have to do with operational excellence? Now Marina Bay Sands is one of those hotels globally which has the highest occupancy ratios. It has the highest occupancy ratio globally, as high as about 95%, 98%. Very, very high by hospitality standards, hospitality industry standards. Which means that the time between a person stepping out of a room and the next person getting in is hardly any time that is available. And yet, in that same hotel, at the ground floor and the check-in counters, multiple check-in counters, they have the lowest waiting time globally at the check-in counters. And they grapple with another problem. And what is that problem? Marina Bay Sands are 2 towers, 64 stories. It's the iconic landmark of Singapore. Two stories with a boat shape on top with an infinity pool at the top. Now, in most hotels, premier hotels, you would have a housekeeping room on every floor. So the housekeeping staff move in rooms within the same floor. Here, where are their housekeeping rooms placed? One housekeeping room services multiple floors. So which means housekeeping staff need to move up and down lifts, which takes time. That's a handicap that they play with. And yet they achieve what they achieve. And they have won awards globally for operational excellence. Now, if your leaders, senior leaders, are understanding operational excellence, learning frameworks, and then go back to a context like that and see and understand how those frameworks are being put in place, actually by an organization, that's learning that they will carry with them for a long, long time. That's immersive learning, where you link up frameworks and contents with live kinesthetic learning. If you look at this, one snap is that of a faculty conducting a session, facilitator conducting a session. Another one is an AI version of him. So the day is not far when we would be having AI facilitators conducting sessions for us. Replica users fell in love with their chat boxes. Now, if you can fall in love with a chat box, I don't think you'd have an issue with an AI coach being assigned to you. In fact, AI coaches are being assigned, have already started getting assigned for mid-level leaders, etc., and so on, yet to start getting assigned in its entirety for senior leadership interventions, etc. But yes, the tools are learning. In terms of implementation, we in a lot of mid-level work, AI coaching is being brought in a number of interventions, also being put together at our end. In terms of intervention, implementation, we bring in a number of Ivy Leagues from the globe to India and this part of the globe. From the US, we bring in Cornell University, which is an Ivy League. It's among those 8 in the world. We bring in Carnegie Mellon. Carnegie Mellon is a world leader in technology. That's the place where the word AI was coined and invented 50 years back. We bring in Chicago Booth, which is the world leader in finance. From among the new Ivy Leagues, we bring in University of Virginia, and we bring in Michigan Ross. From the Europe, we bring in 2 schools, which are 1,000-plus-year-old schools. That's the Oxford and the Cambridge University. We bring both of them to India. And even nearer home in Singapore, we bring in the National University of Singapore, SMU, and INSEAD. Now, when you're bringing in faculty from these Ivy Leagues, they bring in deep research content into the classroom. So you have Ivy League faculty coming in with deep research content into the classroom. Senior leaders typically also look at these interventions as good networking opportunities. They kind of develop connections that they carry with them for long after the program has got concluded. And finally, senior leaders look at international exposures. They look at international experiences. They want to understand how the same aspects are being done globally and so on. I spoke about one immersive exercise right now. So we could run a module in India and another module either in Dubai or London or in New York City or at Singapore, depending on what needs to be addressed in that particular learning intervention. We could run industry immersions there. We could bring in a campus immersion there, depending on the need and requirement of the context. In terms of impact assessment, we track impact assessment at all 4 levels of the Kirkpatrick model. At level 1, we track it through happy sheets. At level 2, which is through assessments and quizzes that happen at various points of time through the learning management system on the platform. At level 3, it's peer coaching and executive coaching. So I spoke about assessments. We could bring in multiple assessments at the start, and a coaching could happen during the 10 or 12-month journey that one is undergoing in that intervention, with IDPs that the coaches help them work on and so on. We could, at level 4, we would bring in action learning projects. And finally, even at level 4, there's something that we do called Shark Tank projects. Here, senior leaders are actually working on projects which, along with the faculty lead who's going deep down and working with them on those projects, projects duly prototyped, they present to the senior faculty members and the senior-most leadership of the organization, seeking funds to take that prototype project to the next stage and level. And we've had multiple use cases where a number of these projects have seen the light of day with the funding received from the board and an SBU being set up. There in an organization for a conglomerate, it's set up 3 SBUs, as these are areas that they want to get into as new lines of businesses. Now, if a sponsor of a program sees something like that out of a learning intervention, that's ROI, his tremendous ROI that he sees from any learning intervention that can be put together. That's all from my side. Thank you very much. Wonderful interacting with you all once again. Happy to interact with you all anytime during the course of the day at our booth. Thank you.
Huge round of applause once again for Mr. Amit Barua. Thank you so much, sir.